Hi, I'm Naomi Speakman and I'm the curator for late medieval Europe at the British Museum, and welcome to my corner. So last time I was talking about bestiaries and different sorts of beasts, and there's a connection today because we're talking about another sort of encyclopedia called a lapidary, which tells the properties of different sorts of stones. One of the things you might not know about our medieval collection is that we have a lot of jewellery, hundreds of finger rings, brooches, and a few earrings as well. And what I really like about our jewellery collection is the connection between text and object, because lots of them have little inscriptions on, some personal, some magical, some medical, and I find that really fascinating. First of all, I'm going to tell you about why precious metals and gems were so important in the Middle Ages. It's not just because they're beautiful, but like everything that's medieval, it's deeply symbolic as well. So you might wonder if you've ever been to a cathedral which still has a shrine. You'd find these on the continent, for example, not really in the UK, why it's decorated with gold and set with gems and Roman gems and intaglios. Well, it's not just because they are fabulous objects to make them beautiful, but it's because in the Bible, the city of Jerusalem, the heavenly city, was described in Revelations as being made of gold and different precious stones. So you would want to cover your precious relics with as precious material as possible because you're literally creating heaven on earth with the materials. So you might be wondering what a lapidary is, and it's essentially a compendium of different stones, precious and semi-precious, their properties, their symbolism, and sometimes their medical applications as well. And one stone that you'll actually see described in a bestiary, so an encyclopedia of the different natures of animals, is the pearl, obviously, which comes from an oyster. And I'll show you an example of that here. Now this is one earring, and you can see we've got two prongs coming down here. There would have been a third one as well. Not many pearls survive from the Middle Ages because, if you can see here, it's attached by a tiny little pin. So often what we'll actually find is the pin and no pearl remaining. This earring is so ornate. It was found in Greece, probably made in Greece as well. It's not certain exactly when, but between about 1350 and 1470, roughly. Now, the pearl was said to have been formed in the medieval description by the oyster opening its shells and soaking in the rays of moonbeams and sunbeams as well. And that is how a pearl is formed. If you wanted to locate a pearl, it was said that the stone agate was attracted to it, almost like a magnet, so you'd be able to suspend an agate and it would locate your way to the pearl. And as with everything, there's also a symbolic property as well. And the shell of the oyster was associated with the Virgin Mary, so another connection with purity as well. As we're talking about religion, the stone sapphire was deeply connected with the clergy. And the blue of the sapphire, I'll show you one on this incredible ring here, as you can see. The blue of the sapphire was connected with fidelity in marriage. So that's quite appropriate if you think about its use for bishops. And we find sapphires used on gigantic gold rings, frequently thought to be for bishops. More than one have been found in bishops' graves. And these sorts of rings would have been used in the consecration ceremony where the bishop was consecrated into his role. And for that, you were meant to use a ring which was gold set with a gem. And there's another reason why sapphires might seem appropriate for bishops as well. And that's because they are connected with truth and truth-telling. So although in reality we know that bishops were effectively just like nobility, they controlled vast swathes of land, they were very powerful, very wealthy, probably didn't always tell the truth. At least there was an aim in the stone on their ring. When we look at this one, there is so much detail. So for example, we have our stone and it's set up high in this kind of open work setting, and 4 claw arms hold the stone in place. When we look, we have wings of beasts in this open work, almost like a cage. And then when we go down into the shoulders, we see the open mouths of 2 beasts. They look almost to be like lions. They've got tiny ears at the sides. You can see also the detail of their mane as well. And then when we look at the hoop, on both sides is a religious inscription. So again, maybe this connects it to a bishop, but actually so many items of medieval jewellery had religious inscriptions on anyway. And we read it, it reads in a horseshoe upside down. It says, Ave Maria, gratia, plena, DMI, which is this very popular, frequently used inscription, Hail Mary, full of grace of God. And this is one of my favourite examples. So this is a massive gold ring. This is 15th century from England. And if you can see, we have quite what might look like quite an aggressive point coming out here. And that's because this cut is called a point cut, and the diamond effectively is cut octagonally. We have a pyramid at the top, and the base of it also would have been a pyramid as well. Now, diamonds have very clear connections with purity because you can see through them, and they are also connected to the marriage ceremony. So one of the first legendary recordings of the use of a diamond in an engagement ring, and in fact the use of an engagement ring, was in 1477 as a betrothal ring between Mary of Burgundy and Archduke Maximilian of Austria. And this diamond set ring also would have likely had a protective role for the wearer, like an amulet. And this is where gems were really important in the Middle Ages, because they had amuletic properties. And we can tell that because it has two images engraved on either side. This is a type really popular in England in the 15th century called an iconographic finger ring, because literally it is engraved with icons. This shows the image of the Virgin Mary and the infant Christ, which was one of the most popular images you'd see throughout medieval Europe alongside the crucifixion. And another English connection, when we turn it round, we have a man kneeling in clerical dress at an altar. It's quite difficult to make out on this, which just shows how important it is to be able to hold it and look up close. The top of his head is impaled with a sword, and this is Thomas Becket at the moment of his murder. So within this hoop, we have this incredible diamond, and then we have the protective qualities of the Virgin Mary and St. Thomas Becket as well. The last thing we're going to look at is from a post-medieval ring, but it's a slightly odd one. And this is called a toadstone. This ring is 16th century, so again, it's a gold hoop. And we can see this kind of mottled, coloured, shiny stone. Now, a toadstone at the time was thought to have come from the head of a toad, and it was said that it could cure poisons as well, so a very medical stone. But actually, in reality, we know it's from the fossilised tooth of a fish. So with all this jewellery, although publicly it's a show of wealth and status and fashion, actually the reasons for people wearing them would have been much more personal. Why they'd have inscriptions on them, who gave them to them, and the different properties behind them. If you enjoyed that video, you can watch more here, such as my one on bestiaries, and you can subscribe to the British Museum YouTube channel.